This is the Engwe EP2 Pro. Felicia calls it angry because the thing's a beast. It's little, but so much power. My goodness, wait till you take a ride on this thing. It'll blow your mind, too. Pretty simple to install. Here's the unboxing ceremony. Everything you need inside the box. The thing is 90% assembled, and that's great. Here's your front handlebar post. Your front tire is ready to rock and roll. You don't have to mess with brakes or the gears or anything. It's fabulous. Even a layman can do this. I'm telling you, if you've never assembled a bike in your life, you could totally do this. Not a problem at all. All right, so everything you need, the tools are in here too, which is great. You really don't need anything else. You won't need any other tools or everything's here. Here's your front tire. The fenders are included. That's nice. It's a nice seat, actually. Nice and cushy. And the front handlebar post, which is foldable. That's the other advantage. We'll show you that in a little bit too. This baby's foldable. I actually got 2 of them in my Jeep. That's amazing. So you want to cut off all the protective styrofoam. And be careful doing this because you don't want to scratch your new bike. Because you can get those scissors a little close in there. Just take your time and cut the little plastic tabs off with a nice sharp pair of scissors and you're good to go. So you want to take your handlebars off. And they are disconnected. And be careful with these cables too. You definitely don't want to cut through those cables, or otherwise some of the functionality or the bike may not work at all. Everything is transmitted. It's an electric bike. It's transmitted through those cables. So here's your front handlebar post. You're going to need to put this on. And you see that little latch there? You want to make sure that latch is on the same side as the hinge. And you'll be able to look at it because you can put it on. I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world if you put it on backwards, but it seems to work better for me if the latch is on the same side of the hinge. So you want to attach your handlebars to the handlebar post. And it's got a couple of little Allen bolts here. And again, they give you all the tools you'll need, the perfect sized Allen wrenches for these things. I think it's all in metrics. So screw that guy in. Don't worry about tightening everything up right now. We're going to tighten everything up a little bit later on in the process. Just get it on there so it starts to look like a bike, because you're going to need to adjust this anyway. So you can't really do that till you're sitting on the bike and facing forward. And you got to put the tire on before you do that. But let's just get that on there so it's out of the way. This is very important because this is the control center, and you don't want to damage this while you're putting other parts of the bike together. So I always recommend put this on first. Just get it up there out of the way where it belongs, and you are good to go. Now you're going to be able to adjust all these things. You can adjust the display to where you want it, where it's most comfortable for you, and also the brake levers will be at a perfect place. We're going to do that a little bit later. Again, you don't have to tighten this up super tight right now, just enough so it's not going to fall over, you know what I mean? Pretty simple to pop in there. So you have to take this little protective plug out, and you're not going to need that. You can toss that. And there's a little protective plug on the bottom too, and you just kind of drop that in there. Pretty simple, right? Now the bolt that connects this all is underneath the hinge. So you're going to take this little hinge protector off and then flip this guy down. You're going to see the Allen bolt in there that's going to attach this to the front fork. Now this is probably the trickiest part of the installation because you're going to need to line this up so that the handlebars are straight with the fork. You follow? So you need to have those handlebars straight and have your fork kind of looking forward. And again, you can tighten this up later too and make those adjustments at any time. And you should probably check this after your first couple of rides too, because sometimes these things wiggle loose right after installation. Make sure she's nice and snug. You don't have to tighten it up right now. We can go back at the end and just really tighten that guy in there. Make sure that she's not going to move. But you need to make sure that those handlebars are straight with the front fork, and you can kind of eyeball that for now. And you latch that bad boy in there, and you are good to go. And there's a little protective latch in there. So the next thing you want to do is let's put you can do this after you put the wheel on, but it's a lot easier, believe me, to put the front fender and the headlight on before the tire's on. You got a little bit more room to play with. There's one bolt that holds them all together. It's like Lord of the Rings. So you pop in the bolt through the headlight, through the front fork, and then it ends at the little tab on the front fender there. I know a lot of people don't put the fender on. You don't have to put the fender on if you don't want to, but it helps dirt and dust and water from kicking up on the frame in case you get stuck in a rainstorm, if you want to do a little dirt riding, as we did some sand riding with this thing, and it helps stop the frame from getting damaged. And then the bottom part of the front fender will be these two little, now this is a little tricky too, because these Once you put the first one on, it's easy, but the other one then becomes sort of spring-loaded. It gives you a little bit of tension, so the other side's a little more difficult, but no big deal. All right, so you're going to take this bolt off. You're not going to need this. This is just a protective bolt so that the frame does not bend during shipping. These things come from overseas, thousands of miles, in these big freighters, the big containers. So you got to be careful when you ship these things, and Angui's done a great job of keeping that front fork. Ours is perfectly straight. Everyone we've seen has been perfectly straight too, so this bolt does help tremendously. It's a nice bolt. You might want to keep it for something else. Now, the axle's already built into the front tire, so you're going to loosen this up really good. I mean, almost all to the end, and it actually doesn't hurt to take them off because you're going to let gravity assist you, if you're doing this by yourself, to let the front wheel drop in. Some people turn it upside down. You could do that too. Just watch your display. You don't want to mess that up, or you don't want to crimp any wires too. What's nice about this is surprising. This is the only electric foldable bike I've seen that has these little protective washers in it. So they're kind of little clips that hold the front wheel bolt into the frame itself. So you're going to have to line this up, and this is a little tricky by yourself. So you have to line up the front rotor right between those two disc brake pads. And you'll see exactly where it is. It only goes on one side, and then let gravity just drop it down right there on the bolt, and then tighten up those protective washers. And again, this is the only bike I've seen that has these. It's a neat safety feature. In case that bolt comes a little loose, it's another layer of protection that's not going to let your tire flip off if you're doing some heavy dirt riding or going over a lot of bumps. They do give you the wrench again, the perfect size wrench. Tighten that guy up. You're going to obviously do this on both sides. And make sure she's nice and snug. And again, at the end, before you take it out on your first ride, you should go through and check all the bolts, make sure everything's nice and snug, just for safety. And it has a protective washer on this side as well. Tighten that guy up nice and tight, just so you can't twist it anymore. You don't want to strip it or anything. All right, so let's throw some pedals on. So these are marked left and right, and the threads are different on each side, so you need to make sure you put them on the right way. And they are foldable too, which is pretty neat. There's actually on the inside of the bolt, so you'll see an L and R. So the left one twists towards the front of the bike. A lot of people get confused on this, but really it's no big deal. If it doesn't go the other way, you'll try it a couple of times. It almost feels like it doesn't want to go in because it's a really snug connection. And you want to make sure these guys are nice and tight too, because you don't want your pedals falling off. Again, twist it to the point where you just can't twist it anymore. You should be good to go. And this is a neat feature too. When you're throwing a couple of these in the car, it takes up an inch or two less space. And this is the only bike I've seen with a little protective wire snap on the chain. It keeps the chain on there too. I thought that was interesting. All right, so let's take the protective nut out of the seat post, and let's drop that bad boy in here. It does have a shim. It's a hollow tube, and it's pretty thick. So it doesn't look like a standard size, but it's a pretty thick opening here. And it does have that plastic shim, so you don't want to throw that away. That's going to make your seat nice and snug. I did unloosen it a bit. Actually, here's your shim. And I had to take it out to get it in there securely and just drop it in that way if that's easier. And then push her down. And make sure that the seat's not all the way down. You got to have enough seat post for the frame to grab it with the quick release. So if you're on the shorter side, this is about as low as it's going to go. They do recommend about 5'3" to 6'3" in rider height. If you're shorter than that, you might have a problem with this seat, but you can probably prop yourself up on the pedals. All right, now this is the charging port here, and it's in there secure. So you want to take your cable and plug it right in here. The battery is removable. It's inside the frame, which is neat because you don't have to see it. And you have two keys for it, which are wire tied to the handlebars. So you do need these keys to remove the battery, and you also need these keys when you're riding to turn the electricity on. And the key switch is underneath, so it's kind of hard to see, which is actually a good safety feature. So you take the keys out, nobody can remove the battery, and nobody's going to be able to turn this thing on. Battery charging is going to take a couple of hours, so make sure you give yourself some time for that. Again, you can remove it with the keys. So the other thing I had to do was put the rear rack and the rear LED lamp on. A little tricky, no big deal, it just takes a little bit of time to find the right holes. Tire inflation is recommended at about 20 PSI. So yeah, you'll have to charge those guys up before you ride it. They're usually kind of flat from the factory, no big deal. So here's your settings. I fired it up for the first time once my battery was done charging. I did find out that the default settings were in kilometers an hour. And being here in America, we prefer miles per hour. So you can change that stuff. You can do all kinds of stuff. Here's your controller here, and you use these buttons. It's got a couple buttons on the side here. So it'll cycle through. You go through your trip meter. You can change your pedal assist. And on the right side, you have your 7-speed Shimano gears. Shift up and down if you're riding down hills, and this is important for pedal assist. And you should pedal, get a little bit of exercise. You've got a half twist throttle, which does not work in pedal assist 0, which is great. I've seen people have accidental mishaps with that. It's not a good thing. So it tells you all the information here. Here's your pedal assist levels. It goes from 0 to 5. 0, of course, is no pedal assist, no assistance from the motor whatsoever, not even with the throttle. The throttle is active in pedal assist 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I lifted it up just to check, make sure the motor's working, and it works great. The brake does cut the motor, all signals to the motor, so that is cool too. It'll shut it down. And of course, your speed's shown on the front there. And if you want to change your settings, it does come with a book that tells you how to do this. It is the third mode to change it from kilometers per hour. This is UN, which stands for unit. So you press this, you want to change this to U1, which will give you mph. U2 is going to give you kilometers per hour in Canada and Europe. And you can turn it off with this little button on the side here. It's kind of hard to see. And this is how you control everything. And just hold it again the second time and it'll go back to the standard function, take you out of the setup mode. So there we are, we're in miles per hour. So it's got 0.3 of a mile. Now it's time to take it out for a ride and see how this thing shines. It's super well balanced. It feels really good underneath you. And it handled this sand with no problem with its big 4-inch tires. This is a great bike. We're going to do a separate video on riding it, but check this out. I think you're going to love the Angui EP2 Pro.